Here are 7 small geckos that can fit perfectly in a 20-gallon enclosure. Number 1 on the list is the Pictus Gecko or the Ocelot Gecko. Pictus geckos remind me of leopard geckos in a way, but they also remind me of like a really nice coffee on a Sunday morning. These geckos get around the same size as the leopard gecko, but they breed like crazy. I mean, they will not stop breeding. They are primarily insectivorous, and you do want to give them a little bit of calcium, of course, with all geckos, but especially geckos that do not rely on the sun to create that vitamin D3 in their bodies. They do love more humidity, so if you're going to keep one of these, you can just kind of put a humid hide off to the side. I also just realized that they're probably called Ocelot geckos because they look a lot like ocelots. Number 2 on the list is the Chinese cave gecko. These things look pretty freaking awesome. The cool thing about Chinese cave geckos is that you can possibly maybe even keep one in a 10-gallon, but 20 gallons would be better. Of course, because they are cave geckos, they also do not require UVB. Temperature requirements don't really fluctuate too much between hot and cool side, but the temperatures won't fluctulate too harshly, but they are going to require anywhere from 68 to about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Some sources kind of say that they can thermoregulate, but I don't know how true that is. So provide them with a little bit of heat on, their hot side of the enclosure. One of the cool things about these geckos is that they can actually cohab. So if you're going to cohab them, I would say get a 29-gallon tall. It takes up the same amount of space that an actual 20-gallon tank does. So that's why, if you're going to cohab them, 29 gallons is going to be perfect for about 2, maybe 3 geckos. Number 3 on the list is Caledonian Geckos. Now, when I say Caledonian Geckos, I mean basically any species from New Caledonia is going to be perfect for a 20-gallon tank. I keep my adult crested gecko in a 20-gallon tank, and you can also keep chihuahuas and gargoyle geckos because they have basically the same husbandry requirements. They all do good in about room temperature, so 68 to 75 degrees. I like putting a small low heat basking lamp on top of the tank just so that they can kind of have a little bit of a gradient. They can go higher towards the top, which my gecko does, and I also have another crested gecko that does that as well. I haven't worked with chihuahua or gargoyle geckos, although they are pretty cool looking, especially gargoyle geckos. I love the reds. My favorite color is red, so I don't really consider cohabbing any New Caledonian geckos just because they could bully each other a little bit. I would just say stay on the safe side, keep one per enclosure, but if you're cool with just having one gecko, a 20-gallon would be perfect. If you don't want to use a bioactive setup to take care of your crested geckos or any kind of New Caledonian geckos, that's fine, but having a bioactive setup is so beneficial just because you don't have to clean the enclosure that much, if not ever. I have some pothos plants, some snake plants, and some other little plants here and there in my gecko's enclosure. And between the plants and the isopods and the springtails, everything is taken care of. And I kind of just move the substrate around every once in a while. If I see any visual, feces on the windows or anything, I like to clean all that up. But having a bioactive enclosure is really nice. Anyways, moving on to number 4 on the list is mourning geckos. Now, I know mourning geckos can do just perfectly fine in 10 gallons, but the reason why I included them on this list is because let's say you want to start breeding mourning geckos. Type B and Type C are more popular and they are a little bit more expensive. That is a plan that I have for the future, putting some mourning geckos into a 20 to maybe a 30-gallon enclosure just because they occupy the same space. I think it would be really cool to just cohab them. If you can keep 2, 3 to a 10-gallon, I would say you can keep about 6 to 7 in a 20-gallon, and then just provide a lot of little spaces where they can kind of lay their eggs, and you can take the eggs out so that they can incubate on their own without the parents because they will eat them. They're very easy to care for. I give them fruit flies, flightless fruit flies, and crested gecko diet, and they absolutely love the banana flavor from Repashy. They're super easy to breed. You basically just need 2 to 3 geckos and the right husbandry, and you're good to go. Number 5 on the list is the Viper Gecko. Viper geckos were probably called Viper geckos because they kind of look like vipers. To me, they kind of look like gaboon vipers. They are crepuscular species, which means that they kind of are halfway nocturnal, diurnal. They like the sunset. They love sunset, sunrise. They do require UVB because of this. You can keep a couple in a 20-gallon enclosure with no problem. They are a hotter climate species, so you are going to want to provide that temperature gradient, 90 to 95 degrees on the hot spot, and then anywhere from 80 to 85 degrees on the cool spot, I believe. They are from the same place as leopard geckos are. They're from Pakistan, so they're going to be pretty similar care requirements on that end. Number 6 on... I don't know why I did a 2.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Number 6 on the list is the Chameleon Gecko. Now, this is something that I never really knew existed, and it's one of my favorites on the list. It's so different looking than a lot of other geckos that it kind of just caught my eye, and it's just really bizarre. They are a New Caledonian species, so again, just like the New Caledonian geckos, you would be able to keep one in a 20-gallon enclosure. I wouldn't consider cohabiting, but they get anywhere from 4 to 7 inches long, and they can live up to 15 to 20 years, just like most other New Caledonian geckos. Number 7 on the list is the barking gecko, also called the thick-tailed gecko. Their scientific name is pretty weird. It's Underwoodosaurus milli, which I don't know who chose that. Maybe they thought it was like a dinosaur that was under the wood when they were like herping. I don't know. They are a terrestrial species and will do perfectly fine in a 20-gallon enclosure. Their hot side basking area is about 85 to 88 degrees Fahrenheit, and you will want to provide them as well with a humid hide, kind of like leopard geckos and Pictus geckos. I think these are probably the cutest ones on this list because the way that they walk is just so funny. If you've ever seen like a bearded dragon run, that's what it kind of reminds me of. It's just really funny. Comment down below what was your favorite on this list, and if you only have space for 10 gallons, then here's this video. It's 7 geckos that can live comfortably in a 10-gallon enclosure.